Welcome to the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast, where we remember a time when stacks of cards were held together with rubber bands and Mickey Mantles were put in bike spokes. We hope you will enjoy and reminisce as you come along with us as we tell stories about the baseball cards from the Golden Age of Baseball. We will examine the state of the vintage baseball card market and talk to some of the greatest collectors in the hobby. You won't be hearing us talk about any chrome or shiny cards here. Now, to take you on this retrospective journey, here's your host, direct from the shallow end of the gene pool, my son, Mike Moynihan.
Yo, and hello, everybody. Mike here. Welcome to another episode of the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast here on Bench Clear Media. So happy to be here this week again. This is going to be every week I say this is going to be another fun episode because I'm having so much fun with this and especially with what I'm going to be talking about today. This interview literally came together in about 12 hours. I did something yesterday. I went, I saw a notification about something. I better back up because I need to put this in some context for you guys so you understand where I'm coming from. If you guys listen to anything that I do beyond Golden Age of Cardboard, you are well aware that I love when art and baseball are put together. I have prints all over my card room from various artists like Ron Lewis and Dick Perez and you name it. I love that stuff. I just think it's so cool. I even have art over here from fellow YouTubers that have done for me. And I loved when Project 2020 first came out. I thought this is different. It's unique. I mean, all the vintage stuff, all the cards, they're always going to be there, right? And when there's something that comes along that kind of marries the past with something contemporary, I just find that really neat. And when it's done in an artsy way, also really neat. So while I was a fan at the beginning of Project 2020, Topps being Topps, of course, absolutely ruined it for all of us because they overdid it, right? And they had this great idea, a unique idea that I think they just kind of did overkill on it. And I've had guys like Blake Jamieson, Project 2020 artist, on my show and talk to him. And, so it's not that I dislike the idea. I just think Topps is going to be Topps. And here comes along. Oh, by the way, I'm a comic guy too. I think anybody from the age of 30 and older, look, if we collect cards, we probably at some point in our life collected something else. And I'm a comic guy. I collect comics and I collect cards. I almost never talk about my comic collection, but I'm a big Amazing Spider-Man guy. That's pretty much what I collect now. I collect some Star Wars comics and stuff like that. Nothing huge, but I absolutely love that hobby. And what my guest today is a guy that's taken comics and combined it with baseball. And the product is called Popfly Pop Shop. And the owner, proprietor, creator, founder, all of that stuff is Daniel Jacob Harine. Daniel, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Well, the fact that you didn't know me from Adam, I emailed you yesterday through your website, and you respond very quickly. I was super impressed with that. I've been just enamored with your work. It is absolutely amazing. First question. Where did Popfly Pop Shop name come from? Where did that? Because it's very tongue twisting.
It is. This all started very nonchalantly, very casually, and I was putting together my first print, which I didn't even intend to really do much with. I was just making a Will Clark print, and I thought, this needs to have like a comic name. I can't make it Marvel or DC. I have to make something. So I just, within 5 seconds, I thought Popfly Comics. Great. So that's what's on the first Will Clark. It says Popfly Comics. And and it's like, well, I'll put that on the next one too, as well. It's like, hey, maybe I should call this something. And I think by the second release, maybe the third, I was like, okay, Pop Fly Pop Shop, that's what it is. I was talking with my childhood buddy Evan. I called him up and like, what would be a good name for this? Pop Fly something or other. What would we have gone to as a kid? What corner shop could we have gone to? And so we kind of put our heads together, and out popped Pop Fly Pop Shop.
Well, for those that are listening that have no idea what it is, give me a brief synopsis of how it works, and then I'll start asking more questions.
Sure. So it's a long-running baseball art series, or sports art series, I should say, and like you mentioned in the beginning, it's kind of a mashup of baseball and comic books, telling the century plus years old story of baseball through the really expressive medium of comic book covers. And I do about one a week, and it's on sale for a week, and after that week is over, then it's retired. So anyone in the entire world, it's unlimited for a week. So if one person wants it, great. If 100 people want it, great. But they have that week to do it. And so after that, the print run is locked, and that's retired forever, and I move on to the next.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, print to order kind of idea. They're all going to be limited to some degree because not everybody's going to jump on board.
Sure.
I want to tell you a story. I was first introduced to you from a friend of mine named Chris McCrary, and he showed a few on his channel, and I thought they were kind of cool, and I'm like, that's neat. And then he sent me one, and he sent me your Honus Wagner, the Flying Dutchman print. And these are really cool. They're in a comic sleeve, really. And then you sign the back of each of them. Is that right?
Yep, exactly.
Is that your signature? Tell me, Daniel, right now.
It has my pen on the back of that.
And this one's numbered to 311.
Mm-hmm.
So it's limited to that quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've been shocked as I've been doing research is how much these sell for on the secondary market. It is surprising because, to be honest, you're in, to buy a new one today, like you're released this week, because this show is going to come out. We're doing the interview on Wednesday. This show will come out on Wednesday. People still have time to go buy the Nolan Ryan. That's currently your 100th one, right? You're celebrating your 100th issue, which is congratulations. That's so cool. People can still go buy that one for the rest of this week, but they're $60. They're not inexpensive.
Mm-hmm.
And how'd you get to that price point, maybe? And how'd you think about that?
I think there's a couple of ingredients that went into that. When I first started, I just picked a number out of the air. I picked $35. That sounds great. And we did it and started doing that again, totally just arbitrarily. And then by the end of that year, I had worked with several athletes and been on the hot stove program, and so this very small project really became like a thing, a capital T thing, and I learned by the end of that year, like, oh wow, this is what it actually takes to do it. This is the work involved, and there's a lot of details, there's a lot of care put into it, and so that decision was made to kind of alter the price somewhat to match what goes into it. And we also, my wife and I run the business together, but we try to keep it as low as we can too, because I'm certainly aware of the secondary market. I know how much these go for. As soon as we mail them out, they're more than they were when I sold them. But I know that not everyone wants to flip them on eBay. People, these are meaningful to some people, and I want to be able to have an appropriate value for them, but also I don't want to keep away people that really find these stories meaningful and want to collect them.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely one of your collector clients, right? And I do admit the first one I bought was this week's Nolan Ryan,
mm-hmm.
and I am so excited to get it. I bought the autograph version because what people need to know is there are just, I'll call it a base version, right? An unsigned version. And then a lot of times you do deals with the athletes where you get a certain number of copies signed. Is that also print to order, so to speak, or auto to order? Like, are there limited quantities of the autographed ones? Or
Occasionally there is. Most of the time, no, there's not for Nolan Ryan. Occasionally they'll run into a scenario where I need to limit it for one reason or another. But more often than not, it's also open until the sale window ends.
That's very cool that you do that. Yeah. So everybody down below, if you're watching this or listening to it, both in the show notes on the podcast and on the YouTube video, I'm going to put a link to Daniel's website to go check out all the old ones that if you've never heard of this, you should go look at these. I mean, they are just incredibly creative and just so cool. Just this mashup that just works. It's absolutely brilliant. I know I'm fawning all over you, Daniel, and I'm sure you hate, people complimenting your work, but when you decide to do a player, what goes into your mind in terms of, I'm going to do this theme or this player, or what goes into that process as an artist?
I do a lot of thinking. This project keeps my hands busy a lot, but I'm always thinking, kind of hashing out like a story or angles. Like for Nolan Ryan, for instance, I was long before I put something down on committed anything to my iPad. I do all these digitally. I was thinking, okay, what's an angle for Nolan Ryan? I'd already done. Nolan Ryan was my 13th release as the Astros. Now I have another opportunity to tell more of a story, and if anyone has more of a story, it's Nolan Ryan. And so just thinking about what angle can I put on this, and designing as much as I can in my mind, literally picturing like a canvas in my mind, and putting things on, trying different things. And so when I get to sketching things, I already have a pretty good idea of kind of what I put in my mind. What I kind of thought through in my mind. But the cool thing is about this project, and at least and how I work, is that I can't sit. The project is fast. I don't have 3 months to sit and think about how am I going to do Nolan Ryan. This is weekly. By the time last Sunday's releases, I got to think about next Sunday's releases. So this all happens very quickly. And the best inspiration for me comes from doing. So I don't sit and wait for inspiration and this is it, and I do that one. I certainly think of the story, but I get to work right away, and I iterate and I draw and I iterate and I draw. And most oftentimes, the iteration process, actually seeing a complete work, like, oh, I should do this instead. So for every piece that I do, there's like 3-4 finished things behind it that kind of led to that one. And the same thing with, again, we use Nolan Ryan for an example. I was thinking about, his most visually iconic moments were as a ranger, not talking about career, but as a ranger, and watching the Facing Nolan documentary. He's passionate about ranch life. And so I felt like, and that was how I experienced Nolan too, as a kid. He was a Texas Ranger when I was, at the height of what I was into. And so I had to be a ranger. And so I did several iterations of it. And then I did that when I did one of that iconic, really high leg kick pose. I was like, that's it right there. It's almost like a superhero. He's obscured. He's covered. That little window between the brim of his hat, his arched leg, and his shoulder. Like, that's a perfect little mysterious window there. And I kind of zoomed in on that moment, and there's very little baseball to be showed here, but there's lots that's inferred, and that just came from thinking about it, yes, but a lot of doing.
Yeah, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see here's the current one right now. This is the Nolan Ryan that you just that's releasing, that's on sale right now this week. Mm-hmm. Right. What's great about this, the mishmash, what makes it so perfect to me is a lot of us that grew up in the time that we did, baseball players were our superheroes, right? Mm-hmm. And comic books are full of superheroes, and to do these just very creative, encompassing aspects of the players, like I know, like Rod Carew, Sir Rodney, and he's in armor, and it's just, right. I mean, it's just all so cool to see that kind of stuff. I just think it's it's incredibly creative. You're just you capture it, you get it.
Thank you.
So yeah, Nolan Ryan, one of my heroes growing up. I know one of yours because you're a Superstation kid. I heard you
Mhm.
mentioning. I watched your hot stove interview with Harold Reynolds and on that show. That was fantastic. And you mentioned being a Superstation kid. I was too. WGN and the Superstation. You could watch Cubs and Braves, and I would get the occasional Rangers game. I'm a Texan, so I have to love the Rangers. But I also fell in love with Jody Davis and
Mm.
Bob Horner and Leon Durham from these old Cubs that I used to watch and that's what made you love Dale Murphy, right?
Yeah,
And he's
absolutely.
your favorite player, right?
Yep.
So how did you guys get hooked up now that, he's always been an adult since you've known him, but I'm just saying, as you became an adult, being a childhood hero and getting to work with him, because that kind of launched a lot of this, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did. He does this thing every year for the past several years called the Dale Murphy MVP Experience, which is so cool for a super fan. You get to go to Atlanta and you eat lunch at his restaurant with him, and he talks to everyone, and then we go and tour the stadium with him, and then we go sit in a private suite with him and watch a game. And that was I had several brief interactions with Dale Murphy along the way, but nothing, of course, he's going to remember just seeing him at a card shop here or getting an autograph at a game. But it was at this MVP experience that I got to actually meet Dale Murphy. Like, he knows who I am, and through that, we talked. And I got to know his wife and just formed a good relationship with the family. And kind of long story short, got in talking about art, like, oh, I do art. And so I got to design a bunch of merchandise for Dale Murphy on his website. We did posters, painted bats, stickers, just a card. I did a Dale Murphy Clubhouse card game, an actual game with its own mechanics, just based on Dale Murphy, and did all the art for that and created it and produced it. It was so fun. So childhood friend turned adulthood, no, childhood hero turned adulthood friend. But there's still like the inner 10-year-old that is so excited to have done that, and for him to call me a friend is just still unbelievable.
Yeah, that is super cool when you're here, and when the people you admire growing up actually turn out to be pretty great people, right?
I got very lucky. I got very lucky.
Sometimes that's not true, but
Yeah.
I've had a couple of interactions with Dale Murphy, and they've all been positive. Like, I have nothing but good things to say about Mr. Murphy. You're obviously a guy that probably thinks Murphy should be in the Hall of Fame, right?
Oh, of course.
So how do you decide what player is going to be next? Do you have a lineup? Like, are you 10 out where the next 10 I'm going to do or this? Do you have a backlog, so to speak?
I have several ideas, a couple things. The short answer is no, I'm not 10 out. Yes, I would love to get there to be prepared. But still, even after 100 releases, it's a very inspiration based. And it's I do a lot of research on a lot of guys. And so yes, I'm learning and researching about Nolan Ryan, but I'm also thinking about 10 other guys as well that's kind of on the back burner. And some of their pieces, I've got several of them in various phases of being ready or done or thought out. And so it's a mixture of just inspiration, what I have on deck that's ready to go, but my ultimate goal is to get a little bit more prepared, rely a little less on the muse, and work with the muse on a calendar a little bit better.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I mean, the further you can get out, I think the better, right?
Yeah, kudos to some of these athletes that I get to work with. Sometimes I think of Wally Joyner. He's the first one that comes to mind. Wally Joyner, I called him on a Wednesday, like, hey, here's a project. Are you interested? And by Sunday, we had a finished piece, and it was one of my favorites that I've done. And so, but a lot of these players are up for this wild ride, this week-long thing, and kudos to them. I'm sure they'd like more preparation too, but it's worked so far.
Yeah, and so just so people know, you have your website. Link will be below. You have a YouTube channel. That link will be below. a lot of weeks you get to interview the actual player. I mean, you're working with the players. They have some input maybe or thoughts, and you incorporate that into your design for the week, your cover for the week. I just think that's so cool. I think I looked at your channel and you have a couple hundred subscribers on YouTube, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. You're interviewing Rod Carew and Tony Oliva and Brooks Robinson. I'm like, this guy should have thousands of people that watch this because it's just so fun to see you interact with the athlete themselves. Has all that been a pretty positive experience, and how do you pull that off? That's so cool.
Yeah, it's been a great experience, and super surreal, but by and large pretty positive, and I'm grateful when they take the time to do it. And working with Dale Murphy, he was one of the first folks first players that I worked with, and once you get an MLBer in your corner, especially someone as wonderful as Dale Murphy, it makes talking to the next guy a lot easier. Your resume starts to grow, and so same thing happened here. Oh, I worked with Dale Murphy. Are you interested in this project? I've had guys say no, but it just became easier and easier, and to the point where some players like, oh, so and so, they really like one. Let me share this with my peers, with their peers, and so we've got guys that are interested in doing the project. Like, oh, I want one. It even gets competitive. Like, oh, so and so sold this many. I'm gonna do better than that. So it's been a fun kind of behind the scenes way to interact with baseball players, and super blessed and grateful that just it's just grown very, very organically and positively along the way.
Yeah, you guys should go watch. Again, the link will be below. Some of the interviews, they're just so much fun. I'm going to put this in your Rolodex of ideas. Okay. I'd love to see an Adrian Beltre pop fly pop shop.
He deserves one. He needs one.
You could do him where he's that night he got thrown out of the game. You can have the umpire as his adversary, as the villain, right? And he's trying to move the on deck circle, and he gets thrown out of the game. That dog might hunt. That could be pretty good.
I totally agree. And speaking of dog, Fred McGriff, if you're listening, I want to do a crime dog one.
That would be awesome. He should get in the Hall of Fame later this year. Would be my expectation.
Yeah, totally.
So this is a card show. Do you collect cards? Did you ever collect cards as a kid?
I absolutely did as a kid. Not so much as an adult. I've had to put parameters around my collection. Otherwise, it becomes me.
Right.
So at this time, I still collect only Dale Murphy stuff. I'm trying to get everything that was made during his playing years, and whatever new stuff interests me, but I don't chase after that at all. But as a kid, I collected everything and anything I could. I just loved baseball, loved cards, the whole culture, everything about it. I was super, super into it.
So I know you've been involved with Topps to some degree on one of the pardon me for not knowing off the top of my head, but what were your first thoughts when you saw Project 2020 and that whole idea?
How do I be a part of that? It was the first thing I had really seen where they had changed the ratio of art and baseball, because for every card, there's one sitting here too, not a Topps card, something from.
No, that's that's Topps finest.
Yeah, 94. Yeah. I just had it right here.
Tony Gwynn, right?
That is Mark McLemore.
Mark McLemore, former Ranger.
Yeah. There's really no reason why this is sitting here other than it's sitting here. But there's a name and some logos and a border, and yes, that's art. Someone designed it. That's art. But the focus is that picture, that photograph. That is the star of the show. And so what I appreciate about Topps is that it changed the balance of the ratio. They made art. It made baseball something to interpret, and that's something that we hadn't seen. We took with these pictures like Mr. McLemore here. It's a picture of him in a moment. There's no interpretation of that. With involving artists in there, there's how can you describe what Mark Lamore is as a person. What is he doing? What is he like? What records has he done? There's so much room in there. And Topps Project 2020 was the first one that sort of, or was the thing that kind of changed that ratio of how art was included. And so as soon as I saw that, I was like, all these, like, it feels like all these cogs, of disassociated cogs in my head, like clicked in my mind. Like, okay, that is great. Let's go towards there. There's a lot of inspiration I took from my model and what they do, and I absolutely loved it. And again, Dale Murphy to the rescue. As soon as Project 2020, even before Popfly started, Dale Murphy, he was like, let me call my contact at Topps. We got to get you a part of this. Dale Murphy in my corner, just wonderful. And I just, since then, there's Project 2020, then there was Project 70. I'm like, I want a moment here in one of these sets. And so I'm glad that finally in Project 100, it happened.
You got to do 5 cards or 10 cards?
I took 5 and stretched it into 10. We had opportunity to do a base card and then a deluxe. Typically the deluxe is just, we do special foil on it. I thought, here's my moment. I got 5 top cards. If I can do something separate, I'm going to make 10 cards out of this. So all my deluxe versions are totally unique artwork. Not just different foil jobs, but completely different artwork, different illustrations, different everything. And so 5, yes, but stretched it into 10.
Yeah, I mentioned in the end, kind of burned me out a little bit. It just, again, I thought it was taken. Obviously, the Shore Griffey just killed Project 2020, but I have a Shore Griffey, as do every other living American. Have a Project 2020 Shore Griffey. But I still love the idea. Like, it's not that the idea is bad, right?
Yeah.
I love that they're incorporating different artists now and just doing different styles. So I just think it's super cool. We got to get you. I'm glad you collect some cards. That's really cool that you have a Dale Murphy collection. And you can probably get him to sign whenever you want. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's still, my heart wants to collect everything. I just can't. I can't.
Well, what made you gravitate towards retired players versus current players? I mean, I think the only current player you've done is Trout, if I'm right.
And Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Right, with his dad.
Right.
Very cool piece, by the way.
That one is shipping as we speak.
But you gravitate towards the classic players. Again, I showed my Honus Wagner for crying out loud. What gives you appreciation for that vintage era, the older guys?
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of this project had its origins in grief, and my father had passed in 2020, and I assume, I only know my own experience. There's a lot of reflecting. There's a lot of thinking back to everything, and just childhood, and there's a lot of existential questions that come with that. And so in that reflection period came what was I into as a kid, and when was I into it, and so the kind of ideas and the groundwork for Popfly Pop Shop was laid there, and without really knowing what I was doing and being able to put language to it later, the project is mainly about these heroes, and you kind of touched on it earlier, these heroes that we see as kids. That's very much what they are. They are heroes. There's a great baseball artist, Greg Cridler, that he does everything photorealistic. It is exactly how it was, down to the time of day and the weather of whatever
moment he's captured.
Exactly. He paints things as they were. I make things as they feel. Or at least I like to think that I do. That's sort of my starting point, and that's why I like the visual language of comic books, is because they expand. They're all about,
they're beyond reality.
Yeah, they're hyperbolic language, and that's how it is as kids. These are untouchable gods on pedestals that we put them on as kids, and so I want to really tap into this is how it felt as a kid. And we just have less of a relationship with the current players as we do with the older players that we saw through those little kid eyes. And granted, I don't think I'm not going to ever not do current players. I did almost all my players for Topps Project 100 were current players, but for me, there's a special sweet spot looking backwards and just experiencing this big, colorful world of baseball through those 10-year-old eyes.
The common threads between us are just increasing by the minute. But my dad did you heard my intro. That's my dad. It really is my dad. He's to this day still an inspiration to me. He's still, I remember being a kid and going to the ballpark with him, and one of the reasons I love vintage is because it reminds me of that.
Yes.
I never saw Mantle or Aaron or Clemente play, but I know what they meant to the game. I know what they mean to the hobby, honestly, the sports card hobby, baseball card hobby. And so I respect that. I truly appreciate it and love it. But that all was kindled by my dad. That all still, if you could go back to a core thread, it's my pops, and him injecting this. I have the collector DNA that he passed on to me. And I love that. We don't collect the same thing. He's not a sports fan, ironically. He just worked in the sports industry. But that allowed me as a kid to just get immersed in something that I loved. And so I got to do all that. He collects, but makes amazing woodwork and uses his collection to do cool things. And he says, the best thing I make with these tools is friends. And I have found that to be true in my collecting journey.
Totally.
You've obviously found that to be true as you're doing your art, and your dad connect. I mean, all of it just so cool. It's never just one thing, right? It's usually it's a conglomeration of events and experiences and things that bring us to certain points.
Totally.
Sorry, I'm getting really deep here. I feel like I'm like Plato, being philosophical, but for hopefully this resonates with you guys out there that, if you're a dad or your dad's still around, take advantage of opportunities to tell them how special they are. Take advantage of opportunities to share experiences and share memories that you had with your kids. Make memories, with your sons and daughters, make memories and revolve it around your passions. If it's sports cards, great. If it's the sport themselves, even better, whatever. If it's art like you, Daniel, you have a 6-year-old kid, I'm sure he's going to be, he or she, I don't know if the boy or girl.
Daniel Jr.
So he's going to be, you're going to just share your passion and love of baseball and art, and all of that's going to be passed on to him. My kids don't particularly, they respect what I do, but they still love, my kids watch my videos and hey, Dad, I saw what you did. That was really cool, or whatever. There's a connection there, right? So sorry, I really got off topic.
No, I appreciate it very much. I think about this all the time, and I say a lot. Baseball is for everybody. Full stop. There's also a very unique connection with fathers and sons with baseball, and just life in general for sure. But fathers and sons and baseball, there's something there that's different, and similarly with my dad, he wasn't like baseball fanatic, but we went to games together. All the Dodger games I went to, he took me there, and he would take me early because he knew I liked to get autographs, and it was probably a pain in the butt to him, to do so and just sit around while I did my thing. But when someone's gone, then you start reflecting on, oh wow, like that was for me. That was an investment for me, and you connect with them in ways that you didn't really realize. There's connective tissues that you didn't realize were there, and that manifests themselves kind of later in different ways that you wouldn't expect. And maybe your kids aren't super interested in what you do, today, or respect it, but in 30 years, 40 years, like, oh wow, like he did this. This was really important to him, So there's I don't know, a lot there.
There is a lot there. And now that you're a dad, you know how probably the sacrifice that your dad made to take you to games and do all that, right?
Totally.
Like, oh gosh, right? But well, Daniel, this has been great. It's been great getting to know you a little bit and the man behind Pop Fly Pop Shop. I think it's so cool. We're going to give away, actually. Daniel's been gracious enough to offer a free Pop Fly Pop Shop to someone. And so here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to go. I'm going to pull up his website. If you go on the website, you can go to the catalog and look at all of the prints that have already been retired that are over. What's amazing is some of these have significantly low print runs. It is so cool, actually. Good luck getting those on the secondary market. But I'm showing, his first one was Will Clark over here, Hank Aaron, Lenny Dykstra, of course, Dale Murphy, right? I'm surprised you don't have 20 Dale Murphys, but I want you, here's how you enter the giveaway to win one of these. You'll win a coupon or a code to be able to buy a future Pop Fly Pop Shop. So you can keep watching. You can buy the Nolan Ryan. Actually, I won't have this out. I won't do the drawing till next week. So whichever, you won't get the Nolan Ryan. If you want the Nolan Ryan, you better go buy it now. Make sure you do that. But you go through this archive of these amazing prints and put down below in a comment what you think is your favorite. What is your favorite one of all the ones that he's done? And so many different players represented, not just Hall of Famers, also just great Steve Garvey and, Omar Vizquel. So many great, just
Dan Quisenberry.
Great one. So all of those you can go check out. If you're listening on podcast, you can certainly go to the website. It's just popflypopshop.com. And again, that's a tongue twister, but go do that. Put a comment on unfortunately, you got to do it on the YouTube video because that's where I'm going to be able to gather all of the comments. So if you're listening on podcast, just go on Bench Clear Media and look for this video and leave a comment. And next week I will give away, you'll have a chance to win a code to win a Pop Fly Pop Shop. So you have until Tuesday next week. So 6 days. And then I'll do the drawing next Tuesday and announce it on the show next Wednesday. So, man, Daniel, any final thoughts? Anything you want to leave people with?
This is just as exciting for me as it is, for everyone else. I'm astonished of what's going on. I still get giddy for me, like, oh my gosh, Nolan Ryan, like I'm right there with you. Like it's such a fun journey to kind of watch from the outside and there's still that 10-year-old kid inside just super duper excited about all the stuff that's going on. And so I'm just grateful for all the support and the community that's been built around collecting these. And it's been awesome doing this whole thing with my wife and I are just doing this, us two. And of course, little Daniel Jr. puts his stickers on boxes and puts things together. So it's been such a blessing to do this with the family, and just so grateful for the opportunity.
Very, very cool. Well, thanks for joining me. Thanks everybody out there for watching, for listening. Go check out the website. Go check out the YouTube channel if you're on YouTube. There's a lot of great stuff there, and you'll keep putting stuff out, I'm sure, on that channel as well. He does the interviews as live streams, so that's super cool. If you subscribe to his channel and get notifications, you'll know when he's talking to a player, and he gives away free Pop Fly Pop Shops on those as well. So all sorts of cool stuff happening in his world. Go check it out. Be a part of it. Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great week and keep collecting.